Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mark Schumacher, the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. And as we wind our way toward the end of a crazy year of 2020, we thought this was a great time to bring in someone who's not only a great friend of the association, but one of the most influential people for our industry, and that's Jerry Epperson. Jerry is a researcher and analyst for Mann, Armistead, and Epperson. Never quite understood why his name is last, but we're not going to get into that today. Jerry's been at this for 40 plus years and is looked to for his insights, and what a great time to do that. So what we're going to do today is look at not only sort of where we are, where we've come from, but really answering all of your questions to help you as you're looking toward the new year and what is going to face us in 2021. And before I get to Jerry, just let me mention a couple of things. This is somewhat of a special webinar for us in that you have the ability on the screen, as you will see, to be able to submit questions. We want you to do that, and throughout the webinar, there's going to be times when a member of our team is going to reach out to you and give you the ability to ask that question live and be able to hear your voice versus me just reading it out to you. So that is something that we're going to be doing. Also, this is, as always, a recorded webinar. So if there are a lot of things here that you want to hear again, you're going to get that link. We have our webinars on demand, and that's something that is a great resource for everybody. So, Jerry, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us. And I have to ask this of every guest: how have you and your family managed through this pandemic? Health good? Give us an idea, sort of where you are as far as all of that's concerned.
My family and I are extraordinarily blessed. My daughter, my wife, and my partners from Mann, Armistead, and Epperson basically told me to go home and don't come out until we ask for you. And so I'm 100 feet above the city of Richmond, looking out at all the other people and wondering where they're going. So anyway, it's nice. I mean, my wife and I will celebrate here in just a few days our 51st wedding anniversary, and we're surprised. We hadn't killed each other. There's been very little violence. The secret is no sharp knives. But anyway, we're actually enjoying ourselves. The kids now are free to come over and visit every once in a while, and we can visit with our 2-year-old granddaughter. None of the immediate family has had any problem. Good. But you just anticipate and you watch. Here in the condo that I'm in, which is known to be for the elderly and their parents. It's set up in such a way we've only had one person get the virus. We're so strict around here, so I'm real proud of that. Good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I guess your wife just looks at COVID as a timeout to put you in, so that's interesting. Let's dig into this, because even in advance of this webinar today, we've had a ton of questions come in, and I want to make sure that we get to as much of what our audience today wants to hear about. But do this for me, if you could. Would you just give us a snapshot as far as a lot of what you're seeing right now? We've all lived it, but give us your kind of your scene setter right now for where we are and some of the key things that you're noticing right now.
First of all, we're very blessed as an industry. You go out there and read the statistics for other industries right now that are suffering. A lot of times they've basically been legislated out of business. That hadn't happened with us. This is a great time to be in any industry related to the home, and we participated very well. No one anticipated we'd have this much demand immediately after the faucets were turned back on. No one. And I think it created a huge problem. I know it created a huge problem because with everybody canceling orders, factories being shut down, and then when the orders started coming in, it caught us flat-footed. And so we've got to crank things back up. That's easier for some people to do than others. But Smith Leonard, our friends, put out some statistics for the month of September, and it said the new orders in the month of September were up 43%, and shipments were up 4%. That gives you some idea of the magnitude of the difference. My big concern is that I think probably some of the larger retailers are double ordering, triple ordering, and whoever can deliver first, they'll cancel the other orders. That's what usually happens during this. But we're so blessed at least to have orders, to have business, to have consumers coming in our stores. Because if you go back to the recessions in 2008, 2009, or the recession after 2001, we went through some pretty dry periods. Our worst recession was probably 1982. But anyway, you go back through these, furniture is not top of mind when you come out of a normal recession. And so we see people putting us off, and then finally we begin to get a roll. And usually that's right after housing activity, and particularly existing home sales, picks up, because that's such a big driver for us. We did a study years ago showing that about 20 to 21% of furniture sales every year come because of people transitioning from one home to the next. That's a huge number for us. So if we have a year like 2008, when we had a housing and banking collapse, and we're not moving houses, that's almost like 20% off the top. And guess how much we were down the big year for the recession? The furniture industry was down 22%. So that's so important to us. And if you look at the housing numbers, they're excellent. We're getting really good numbers. New housing is going up. Existing home sales are finally picking up. They vary a little bit in their impact, if you will, because an existing home comes with some landscaping and some paint on the walls and some carpeting and flooring and appliances. Whereas if you look at a brand new home, you're facing a brand new piece of paper in terms of what you want to do and where you want to spend. So existing homes probably have a little bit more impact in terms of our business than a new home, but that's so important. And with interest rates, my daughter bought a home this week, day after yesterday. Her mortgage is 2.75% for a 30-year mortgage. I won't tell you it's for $475,000 because that's getting personal. But 2.75%. My wife and I remember a double-digit mortgage rate at one time.
Yeah, me too.
This is unheard of, and the Fed says they're going to keep these rates at this level throughout 2021. So we still have got time to really feed the furniture industry with new homes and all that. The other side of it is we've got the millennials. And for the first time, we're seeing where the statistics are showing that the millennials are beginning to move out to the suburbs and to the more rural areas, getting away from the urban areas. Now, for probably the last 8 or 10 years, I've been reading all these experts saying this group, the millennials, will never leave downtown because they love being close to their stores and being able to go out to the bar and walk to a restaurant, all this. Well, that's not true. What happens is when you have a kid, everything changes. And so if you've got a kid, you need to move to a suburb to have recreational opportunities, probably better schools, more area to be comfortable. And that's what's going on, and that's good for us as well. Larger homes, and they're probably moving because they're a little more affluent themselves.
I got to tell you, I remember, one of the comments made early on in this pandemic is that you talked about the focus on home and just people spending so much more time in the house, working in the house, seeing their furnishings in a different way, and that causing that. A couple of things that I want to hit up here before we get into some of these questions. You talked about the demand not being anticipated. The pent-up demand, I think coming out of the gates was predictable. Are you surprised at how the demand, even with dwindling supplies, how the demand has continued? And is that sustainable? Because I remember back in May, everybody thought, oh, this is only going to last a month, and we're going to have to, think about what comes next. And then we hear about record Augusts, record Septembers. What's keeping that going? Because a lot of the retailers that are on this call don't have items to sell all the time at this point.
In early May, I got a phone call from one of my favorite retailers. He is a curmudgeon. I've never heard him say business was good. If you ask him how's business, he said, no, it could be better. He's never enthusiastic. He called me to tell me that he had just had a weekend that was more than double his same weekend last year. And they've got more orders and all to make it even bigger. He was just amazed. And he asked me if other people were having the same thing. And so we made some calls. We talked to a lot of people. I've got a few spies out there. And it wasn't true everywhere, but it was certainly true most places. And a lot of people said, well, once they got that $1,200 check per person out of their system, they'd not spend anymore. That hadn't been true. Mm-hmm. And statistically, we have added to our savings. The United States now has got more savings by consumers than we've had probably since the 1950s. We've added, we've cut down on debt, credit cards, other personal debt, other household debt. We've cut down on debt at the same time. How can you do that and still spend like we've seen them spending? And the answer is very simple. They're not going out to eat like they used to. Mm-hmm. The Restaurant Association yesterday said that 110,000 restaurants have shut down permanently this year. And they described another 500,000 restaurants as being in a free fall and may not last the first 6 months of next year. With all the regulations dictating how you can run your business, and if you can run your business, you can certainly understand it. And we're seeing that across the board with other industries as well. Cruise ships, I heard one of them the other day said that they've got all these orders for next year. And I don't doubt them for a minute. I'm not saying that they're being incorrect, but it might be they're putting them all on one ship instead of the 25 ships they usually use. I don't know. But
when do you see this? When do you see this ending? When do you see this ending? This high level of demand. When do you see that sunsetting? And is there a way to even define that at this point?
I think we're going to go through a longer period of time adjusting to being able to get out and be normal. Because I can assure you that, number one, my wife and I have learned how to get things delivered to the home, do things out of the home we never thought of before, have an interface with our family and friends in a way just we didn't do it before. We didn't have any need to do it. We didn't have any pressure to do it. Secondly, we're not getting on an airplane anytime soon, okay? And the airlines are probably relieved at that, but we're not getting on an airplane anytime soon. We know where we go for our vacations, and it's safe. The people aren't going to spend like they used to spend. And some of these things are going to be in trouble for a long time. Theaters, events. I think some sporting events are going to have a long time before they get back, just because people don't want to be in crowds. And I think that's going to continue even if we get the vaccine. Now, I had polio when I was 2 in 1950. I'll let you figure out how old I am. Now, in 1954, a doctor came up with a vaccine. They used to give it to everybody on a sugar cube. And you took your sugar cube, and that was to prevent polio. 2.5 years later, Dr. Salt came forward, and he said, I got a little bit better vaccine. And they looked into it, and this vaccine was much more inclusive and much safer than the sugar cube.
Right.
So all of us lined up and got our shots. Most of us remember that. Now, that's going to happen this time. I don't ever like to buy the first of anything, especially if it's got a chance of killing me. So this first vaccine, I'm a little suspicious of because it's been rushed. There are too many people out there calling for it too quickly. I kind of like to wait and get the second vaccine when it's available and a little more checked out.
Well, and let me tell you something, you're not alone. If you look at the statistics out there, I think I saw a report this week that said roughly half of Americans are skeptical. So I want to just see where you're going with this. So what you're basically saying is our situation's not going to change dramatically. We're still going to be focusing on home. We're still not going to be spending on other things. So can I translate that into you feeling that there's a good chance that home furnishing sales can remain robust for the first, how long? The first how much of 2021 would you suggest? And we're not going to hold you to this specifically, but what's your gut?
In our work, we're saying that all these different things that were essentially prohibited from doing, those things are going to phase out slowly into the summer of 2022. And things are going to pick up gradually, going out to gamble, taking vacations a long ways away, staying in hotels. I don't think the minute we got a vaccine, and a lot of people get the vaccine, all of a sudden everybody's going to say, hey, let's go gather together in a big room. I don't think so. I think we're all going to remain suspicious. I think all of us are going to remain, not all, I think a large percentage of us are going to continue to wear masks for a while when we leave our safe quarters. And again, the home, think about the home. We could not have possibly advertised and created this demand for the home. The home builders are seeing it. The do-it-yourself guys like Lowe's and Home Depot are just exploding. I don't have a problem, but I hate to see everybody selling more than they can deliver, because those of us who've been in the industry for 49 years haven't had many of those times. We've had lots of times when we could deliver, but nobody wanted. The other thing that's true this time that I think we really need to focus on, these people are coming into our stores with a purpose. They're just not coming in there to wander around and see what the latest futon is. They're coming in and saying, I need this, 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 and this.
Right.
And they're buying. Okay, they're not lookers, they're buying. And we've got credit programs that are great for them. We've got so many things we can help them with. What does that tell you? A lot of other people are out there who don't feel comfortable yet buying. And so, we say this is a lot of business, but still, it's not nearly as much business as we could potentially do. Now, I have a list around here somewhere where I put together all the different industries that have been basically litigated out of business. So the government has dictated, like airlines and like going out to eat and, theaters and all these different things. They added up to $1.4 trillion. $1.4 trillion in 2019. How much did our industry do in 2019? 130 billion. So if we got 1% of what that did, that would be another almost 10% to us. It doesn't take a lot to get us really going. And so I think that's a real key. If this momentum can continue, if people, when they start going out, see other people's houses and see, wow, that's beautiful. Where'd you get that? Here's where I got it.
There you go.
I think this can go on for a while.
Well, that's great news for the people tuning in. And by the way, he needs no introduction, but joining us here on the HFA webinar is Jerry Epperson. And, Jerry, it's interesting because when we talk, and I want to get into some other specific areas here in a few minutes, but you're really talking about a real large field of potential buyers out there that maybe aren't getting the attention right now, because it's easy to feel great about our close rates, going through the roof and people coming in and they're buying. That really is kind of fueling it. I'm almost hearing you behind that saying, guys, you need to be looking at the prospective customers out there, and a huge chunk of them that are not even comfortable coming in yet. I mean, that's the first time I've really heard somebody kind of explain it that way. So you see that we're not even tapping really the true full pool of consumers out there that are in the market for home furnishings. Is that fair?
And keep in mind that disposable income is up the highest it's been in what, 14 years? And discretionary income is up. Like I mentioned earlier, savings are up. The stock market at 30,000 is pretty impressive if you use the Dow. I got in when the Dow into the stock market right out of graduate school, and the Dow Jones average was 476. Now, I'm not saying all of that gain from 476 to 30,000 is because of me, but that's a hell of a gain. Now, all this is growing. I think there's a universe of people out there who are very unhappy with their home because they can't do what they want to do. And because you can now do all these new technological things in the home, I think they're eager to move. They're eager to buy another home. And that's what's going to continue to drive our business, even after these original folks came out and spent money.
For those of you joining us, please do me a favor and on the right side of your screen, enter the questions that you have. We're already getting a ton of questions in. We're going to get to as many as possible, and we want to also hear from some of you directly. Jerry, let's get into some of these because there's been so many questions that we're getting coming in. I'm kind of clumping them into subject matters here. Let's talk about supply. Let's talk about
25% of what I was planning on saying, but that's okay. Everybody's heard it before.
I guarantee you we're going to get to 100% of it based upon the questions, because I know that we're all probably thinking the same way. Can we talk supply chain for a little bit? It's a complex situation, we know, in many aspects, but a lot of people want to know from what you're hearing and seeing, when you feel like it's going to catch up, that supply will start to catch up, and what that looks like as well. I've got people asking, is it a 3, 6 to 9 month prospect? There's just so much about this. People want to know when the supply is going to catch up with the demand, and really that's top of mind. So let's talk supply chain right now. What are your thoughts about how and when it's going to catch up?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the imports, since they're so important in our business. Imports are about 88% of all the wood furniture that we sell, and about 45% of all the upholstered furniture that we sell. So they're really important. What happened with the ports this time is the same thing happened to the toy industry and the gift industry and everybody else that happened to us. They canceled orders and factories overseas shut down. And the ships kind of said, well, there's no reason to go back and forth with nothing on us. So, they just stopped off somewhere. Now, we have got this huge sudden surge. Just think about the Christmas business. The Christmas business was basically shut down. In 2011, Target and Walmart, and back then probably Kmart, I don't know. But anyway, 5 of the largest Christmas retailers laid out a dictate that everything that was related to Christmas had to be delivered to them, by the 3rd weekend in August. It had been by the 1st of October. So do you think that's a change? So when all this mess happened earlier in the year, that mid-August date went out the window. And so we're competing in the ports with all the Christmas stuff that's coming in. And the other thing is, we've got more blackmail going on than you can possibly imagine, because you've got the shippers, you've got the ports, you've got the unions, you've got the trains and the truckers, and they're all competing to who can be the biggest bad guy and charging more and more. Transportation costs that were $800 a container are now costing as much as $6,500 to get to its destination. Now, think about what's in a container. It's really not much. And an average container in the furniture industry is probably $22,000. So if you add $6,000, that's a big increase. And none of that merchandise is going to be able to be sold at the prices they were dictated to. So
can I step in for 1 second? I can one up you there. I heard directly from a retailer that told me that one container was bumped up to $10,000. That there are some that are paying $10,000 per container. I mean, that's, and you're saying what the normal price are, let's just say they were $2,000. You know, a 5X, you know, bump is just crazy. And who ends up paying for that? I didn't mean to interrupt, but I want to just let you know that that's not the most your example is not the most egregious one I've heard in the last few months. So it's crazy.
Well, I've talked to retailers who said, I'm not going to put up with this. I've drawn a line and saying, I'm not going to pay more than that. And their logistics people have come back and said, they don't give a damn. They got plenty of other people to service, and we're going to go to the bottom of the pile. So you have to do something. We're being blackmailed, but we know about that. We have never been through this before, where we have that difficulty getting into the country. Our imports have zoomed from less than 10% of all our retail sales in furniture and mattresses to today about 62% of everything. And like I said, about 45% of upholstery and about 88% of all wood furniture. We can send you a lot more detail on that. So again, we can't get past the start line, even getting it in. And you've got just as many problems back wherever the stuff's coming from.
Sure.
Now, the other thing is your domestic people who ought to be just absolutely grinning ear to ear are way too often reliant upon Chinese fabric, Chinese leather, spring kits, pre-sewn kits. All that stuff it kind of slowly walked its way overseas. So if you're a U.S. manufacturer, you're not like a completely unique unit that's self-sufficient. You're dependent upon all these other things getting here. I just spoke to I think, who's one of the best manufacturers in our business. And he is sold out through June. And he said, one side of me wants to grin ear to ear, but the other side of me, you know, comes in here, closes the door and cries. He's having to raise prices. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't raise your prices, don't wait till somebody gives you the price increase on a bill. You need to raise your prices. Number one, if you don't, then there won't be much reason for you to sit on these conversations in the future because you won't be in the business. Number two, if you don't believe that the American consumer does not know prices, watch The Price is Right. I've been preaching it for years. People will come in there and see the stupidest little thing, $4,000. And when the real number comes up that it was $299, you know, there's a, oh, okay. They just don't know. And those of us in the industry don't know. Another thing, go into an accessory showroom, High Point, Las Vegas, wherever you are, and just sit there. I guarantee you it won't take 30 minutes. And you will hear a professional buyer from a retailer whose name we all know. And that buyer's going to walk up to a lamp, look at the price tag, and they're going to say, is this retail or wholesale? If this is a professional buyer for a major retailer and they can't look at that item and see if that price is wholesale or retail, what do you think the average American consumer does? I tell you, we give them too much credit. And so we tend to price who we think is our competition across town. But again, a lot of times they're not carrying the same mix. Hopefully they're not carrying the same mix. And we've got this opportunity in our business to get away from being so monolithic. If you walk in, and please do, an Ashley Home Store, a Value City store, a Raymore and Flanagan's, a Rooms to Go, walk through and then go down the street and walk through another one. Not the same brand, but and you will come out at the end of the day with a legal pad full of, all of them have the same dining room. All of them have the same colors and size and arm treatments in leather. A lot of them are going to have the exact same lift chairs and power recliners. they are limited. They are limited. Their hands are tied about who they can buy from because there aren't manufacturers large enough to service these big retailers. Whereas our mid to smaller retailers can go into a lot of showrooms, and those showrooms can't sell the big boys. Does that make sense to you? In High Point, there are about 2,600 showrooms, I think, last time I looked. The people that can do the kind of volume with the really big top, probably 200 furniture stores, department stores, and other retailers in the country. That's limited to about 400 of those showrooms. That leaves about 2,100, 2,200 showrooms that are there that would love to sell you because they can't sell the big boys. It's absolutely a study that somebody ought to just treat people, sit them down and say, look, why are you shopping the same place the big boys do? They're always going to get a better price. They've always got better logistics. So you need to sell what the big boys aren't selling. You can't out Ashley. You can't out rooms to go. So there's an opportunity in every town in our country to go out and offer products that are truly differentiated from the mainstream products that the consumers see advertised every day and get the folder out on Labor Day. I'm sorry,
Well,
I got off.
No, I don't think you did at all. But I think that as I remind people that we're having a conversation with Jerry Epperson, and we want you to definitely give us your questions because we're going to get to as many of them as we can. So please do that on the screen. But one of the biggest takeaways is interesting, and in your opinion, is you're saying now is the time to raise prices if necessary, and you've basically said it's necessary. So I guess don't be afraid to do that, feeling that it will not negatively impact your sales to the consumers coming in the door. Interesting thought, because there are so many cost pressures right now, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's still some tariff issues and other things that are brewing. There's a lot of things that are pushing prices up or forcing that way. And you're saying, at least I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying embrace that and do it. Fair?
I don't think you'll live to regret it. I don't think many people are going to come in a week later and say, you're selling this for $99 and I found another one for $89. Good luck. Okay? Because a year from now, I'll be in business and that store will be out of it. You've got to raise prices when this is happening to everyone. And we have fought price inflation so much in our industry. Again, since the 1970s, our prices have gone up 40% less than the average in the consumer price index. If we had just raised our prices the same all other consumer goods did, we'd be selling twice as much furniture as we are today. Be the same number of units, but it'd be twice as many dollars.
But how do you balance that, Jerry? Here's my concern with that: is how do you balance that with the online retailers that have changed the discount landscape? How doesn't this in some ways hurt a retailer, a brick and mortar retailer who's also competing against that? How do you reconcile that? Because that's a part of this that I don't quite see being such an easy sell when it comes to raise your prices. Well, we've got others that are willing to sell you stuff for less.
The web does a really good job. They're extremely efficient. I sat in one of the movie theater showrooms down in High Point early in Amazon, some of those. And the guy came on from Amazon and said, this was for the press, by the way, it really wasn't for furniture people. He got up and he said, if we have speed of delivery and selection, we don't worry about price. And 2 years ago, Amazon started restructuring the way they show their furniture, putting theirs in where they have the most profit first, and everybody else where they don't make as much money down at the bottom. Amazon has got a lot higher prices than most people think, but it's awfully easy to go to. It's awful easy to look up. Now, I'm not going to mention Wayfair by name, but a family member was just within the last week, with Christmas coming, wanted to give a lift chair, not to me, there are other handicapped people in the world, but give a lift recliner to a family member. And they had gone to Wayfair. And when they called me and told me what they found, I didn't believe it. So I went there and I looked. Now, again, we're looking for a lift reclining fabric recliner built for someone over 300 pounds. Go look at it at Wayfair. 60% of those that are normally in their mix are either not available or they can't ship them for one reason or another. 60% of their universe isn't available. What does that tell you about that? They don't have any advantages over us. And the other thing I read just before I came in here, I wish I'd saved it, was an estimate from the Cyber Weekend and the Big Friday, how much e-commerce retailers were going to get in returns. Now, I'm not going to swear to this number, but I think the article said $70 billion. That's a lot of merchandise to have to take back in. And again, I go crazy over these things. My wife likes Zappo shoes. She gets 6 pairs of shoes. She keeps one. She sends the other one back. Scares me to death. But then again, it's not a big item you have to tote in and out.
So you're saying don't fear that. Go ahead and in your brick and mortar store, if you raise the prices as you see necessary, do that. The consumer will still buy, is your sense.
And these other companies, I mean, look at how many of those e-commerce retailers that were going to take over the furniture industry have disappeared. It's over 1,000, and all of them are just going to bring the furniture industry into modern times and take over. It doesn't make sense. We, as an industry, have to keep in mind that sane consumers want something that they can use for a period of years, that they pay a fair price for, and that if there's an issue or if they need to take it back, the person or the store is still going to be there. And that's part of the problem with some of these other people. And I'm not just talking about e-commerce retailers. I mean, there are other kind of retailers out there that are just as bad. I really think brick and mortar is beginning to grow. Look at Casper and I can't even think of their names.
Nectar, Purple, they're all opening brick and mortar.
They're all either opening brick and mortar or they're going to major, successful, large U.S. retailers and getting a spot on their floor. They want to compete with Sealy and Serta and Simmons and the traditional S's. They want to compete with them because they think they've got a better story and more reviews and all this stuff than we have in the traditional furniture industry. And they're probably right because they spend more time studying and figuring out how to market the product than we do.
Let me remind everybody, we're having this conversation with Jerry Epperson. And Jerry, we appreciate you being here. I want to wrap a bow on supply chain before we get further away from that. Would you just give me an idea of all the pressures on supply chain right now? Which is the one you think is the most important that will help to really tilt the scales back to a steady flow here? Because there are so many aspects of it that are disruptive. Where do you see the breakthrough coming as far as supply chain is concerned?
I read an article last week from one of the monthly suppliers of import statistics. And the columnist said that there's no chance of any relief coming through the ports until after the Chinese New Year.
Okay.
And I don't know the exact date, but it's probably February. So, you know, we've got that, isn't that far away right now. I'd love to think we could snap our fingers and at the end of February, everything's going to be hunky-dory. But if we can just get it back where the shippers and the truckers and everybody else would just honor their contracts, that'll never happen, but it'd be nice. But we're going to see it come to some sort of equilibrium. Is the demand by the consumer just going to continue to grow and grow and grow? No, it's not really growing that much now. It's staying at a high level. And thank heavens it's staying at a high level. If it continued to grow, we just disappoint more people. What the smart retailers out there just get so frustrated. What's worse than have somebody who's a buyer who knows what they want to come in your store? You've had it, you will have it again, but you don't have it right now. And they walk out the store. I'd a lot rather have, well, sometimes we've got merchandise and no buyers. Right now we got buyers and no merchandise. And we're going to get through it. But there are other things some people are doing, like eliminating or not selling their smaller retailer customers. They want you to be a certain size in order to do business with them. That's a pure business decision because they'll be able to get rid of some of their customer service people. They'll probably fire some of their reps. It's going to be a cost saving issue. But I think of this industry as it's the next rooms to go. The next Ashley Home Store is somewhere in the United States right now. And all of our big stores that we see today used to be small stores. I can remember going into the first US IKEA. I can remember going into the first Ashley Home Store. I can remember going into the first Rooms to Go because I knew the people that were starting them had a big plan. And by George, they had a big plan.
Jerry, let me do this, and we're getting obviously a lot of interest from folks that are on the call asking some questions. And we have a question from Kyle Johansson. He's part of the Johansson family that's part of Home Furniture up in Minneapolis. He's got a question for you, and we're going to give this a try here. Kyle, are you able to hear us and speak right now? We're going to give it a shot here.
I was up there in 2015 and walked through. At that time, their new store was spectacular.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Kyle, are you there? If not, then I will ask the question on Kyle's behalf. Let me ask the question for him. He says, do you think that brick and mortar retailers should focus on that core brick and mortar business or try to grow and capture the e-com boom? That's his question. You know, how do you feel about embracing one, the other together? Give us your insights.
Everybody's learned to shop online. They may not buy online, but they shop online. They want to know what's available. And that's why you've got to have a website that shows the selection. It shows the vendors that you're dealing with and can order from. It shows the breadth of your assortment. I think that they're absolutely mandatory today. Not having a website that your customers to go to is sort of like having a brick and mortar store and no sign outside. Because the people are going to look you up if they can't find you. That's when you've got a problem. And so I really think that they are such a shopping opportunity. I find myself, if I need just about anything, I'll go on the internet and look for it, go to several big sites and see what it costs and what it's gonna, who's got it, and then usually I'll buy locally if I possibly can. By the way, right now we're shopping for one of those water heaters that heats the water instantly when you turn the faucet on. Anybody has a deal? Okay.
Yeah, that's not self-serving at all. Thank you, Jerry. All right, well, I appreciate that answer. We're gonna, I've got other questions coming in that I'd like to also toss your way, and this comes from someone that I'm sure you know well, and I do as well, Christina Marzilli, who's with the Decorist Furniture. Great family and a wonderful business. And she says, How do you handle constant delays in shipping dates from all vendors? How do we explain giving 7 months shipping to customers? Now, this is coming from a manufacturer, so this is kind of, this is the can that sort of gets kicked down the supply chain. But it's a great question, and something we've had webinars on this. What are your thoughts on how how do you do that? And maybe there's no magic bullet here, but how do you present that when we're talking about such huge delays?
First of all, don't lie about it. Explain to them these are issues that are out of your control. That today, the furniture industry is global. It's not like it used to be when a lot of our factories were, one state over and we could pick them up and ask them to throw something extra on a truck. Now we don't have the control. And remember, your foreign factories aren't just shipping to the US. They've got European clients and other Asian clients. They're shipping all over the world. So I really think being honest is all you can do, because if you lie to them and present that you've got more clout than you do, or something's coming in that isn't, that's worse than anything possible. They may get mad, they may yell at you, but they can't go anywhere else and buy it either. So, good luck.
This is also why you're not on a retail floor, but that's beside the point. No, but no. Okay, so but again, the whole point of the matter is, there's no magic bullet here. Tell them the truth, and they can't get a better, answer across the street. So I get that. This is
for the salesmen, salespersons, and for the reps, because they get yelled at the most and have the control of these issues the least.
Here's another terrific question that has come in. What's the most important thing that a retailer should be focusing on in their business to remain profitable in 2021? If you could get that, what's the one, or maybe let's give the two, what are the key things that, and again, to remain profitable going into 2021?
Take advantage of these times and go recruit great people. You look at all these major retailers of different sorts who have gone out of business, their best salespeople are out there looking for jobs. You can upgrade, you can add some people that have got some real experience and have proven themselves. Go get these people and have them into your business.
Go ahead. No, please continue. I'm sorry.
One of the things we're seeing is a lot of retailers, furniture stores in particular, aren't advertising like they usually do. I guess the logic is we've got so much business we don't need to. You don't advertise to get the person that's coming into your store already. You advertise to get those people who haven't been in your store, or the person that just moved to town. That's why you advertise. And by the way, always put where you are on there, your phone number, your street address. Some friends of mine put out ads that just say, here's, like we're all supposed to know just by that knowledge where they are. People come in town new don't know where that is. We've got to keep advertising to get that presence in front of all these people. And finally, this is a really good time to look at your merchandise mix and make sure your mix excuse me, matches your customer base. We're an industry that historically our retailers, smart people all, bought their stores to control their costs. And they were careful in getting product that is for the customer they're serving. 30 years later, their entire neighborhood has changed, but their store is sitting there still selling the same mix they have all ever. Why? Because they know the rep, they know the factory people, they're comfortable with them. It's easy to buy from XYZ. Yeah, we've been doing business with them for 20 years. You have to evolve. And I've admitted to this. You've got to learn new names and figure out new ways of doing things. If you go back in our industry 10 years, most of the imports were sold through a U.S. name. Today, I don't know if it's most, but it's real close to it, of the imports sell through their own sales force, sell their own merchandise. It's a whole different way of doing business than we did traditionally. I mean, all this is an opportunity, exciting opportunity.
Well, you know, Jerry, it's interesting too that I've had a number of retailers I've spoken to who said that because of the fact they've had to you know, cut their staffs down and things of that sort, that they are spending more time again on their floors. And a lot of these changes are happening because it's really taken a lot of these owners and these CEOs and put them on the sales floor where they've not been able to be for a long, long time to really critically look at it. So that's an interesting byproduct of this. We do have a question, and I believe we're going to be able to actually hear from him directly. But Rick Coppola is joining us. He's the president of sales for Ashley. Rick, if you can hear us and you have a question for Jerry, let it rip.
I do hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We got you. Go for it, Rick. It's good to have you on the program. Thank you.
You know, another thing that seems to be very odd in what's going on domestically here, you know, unemployment, as you know, and I don't have the exact numbers, but was hovering around 3% before COVID hit. It exploded to over 14%, I believe. Now it's about 7%. Yet we hear all over the country from manufacturers and retailers that the competition for people and getting people to come to work is just out of control. It's very difficult to get people. You know, and as a result, costs are going up on hourly costs. There's a lot of competition for folks. What do you think is going to happen there? When is the relief going to come? And why is the unemployment rate still at 7%? I guess because some of that stimulus, additional money for unemployment is going away. When are people going to start coming back to work?
Thank you. I'm flattered by the question. Again, there are some government issues out there that are still put more money into the pockets of the unemployed. I personally feel like we don't have any enemies outside our country that scare me, but I think drugs have basically eliminated probably 25 to 30% of our workforce from being able to handle a responsible job. And that's the biggest problem of all. And if you give these people some money that they weren't expecting, it might go right into buying drugs, and they don't want to go back to work. It's one of the saddest things ever. And there are lots of subsets of this where whole groups of males in this area or females in this area just don't want to work anymore, and they think there are good enough opportunities out there with the welfare system that they can either collect enough money there to live, or they can cheat their way through the system. I'm handicapped. I'm not disabled. I'm handicapped. I couldn't help that. But the number of people out there that are on disability that do a lot of things just scares the dickens out of me. We're throwing so much money away.
Jerry, you know, when I hear this kind of conversation, and by the way, Rick, thank you for asking that question, because I think finding good people, bringing them back to work, all this stuff is critically important. Are we doing a lousy job as an industry in promoting this industry as a career and not just a job?
I was walking through a store here in Virginia last year, and while I was walking through with the family owner, he waved this lady over who was probably in her mid-40s, and he introduced me, and she was just grinning ear to ear. She was having a great month and doing okay in what wasn't a particularly good year. And when she walked away, he said, that lady made $150,000 last year, and she's going to get a very nice bonus on top of that. And he said, why people don't understand that you can make money in the furniture industry. And today, with the ability to put together a list of contacts by who just bought a home in your area, who, you know, you can get what kind of income they had, all this other stuff. We ought to be tracking these people and soliciting these people. Decorator's Den, has the little cars that go around. If somebody moves into a new home, they're right there day one. They give you a gift and they show, look, we've got all the carpets, we've got all the wallpapers, we've got all the paints, and some furniture. Let us come to your home and help you do it so you don't have to do it all yourself. And these people have just figured out a different way to do it.
It's one of those things. It's been a subject matter for us internally here, really talking about it, because this is a great industry. It's a great business, and now even with these complexities, it's just there's just so much to it. And so I don't know. I think that's something that I'd love for us to have even more conversations about down the road here. But let me ask you this. I'm going to try something with you. We have had so many questions that I'd like to kind of do a little bit of it, and don't feel you have to keep it to one sentence, but I want to do a little rapid fire here and just have you kind of route through some of these things. So there's some great stuff here. What do you think is going to be the biggest and best driver for traffic in 2021 for brick and mortar stores?
New homeowners.
Okay, so keep an eye on your new home sales and just home sales period in your areas. Okay, got it.
Now, I didn't mean new homes like a brand new home. I meant people who are buying their first home. I should have said it differently.
Okay, all right, fine. First home buyers. Okay.
Moving to the first home, you need everything. Unless you're an Epperson, then you get our old stuff. But anyway, everybody moving into the brand new first home is when they can show off and when they can first begin to buy things they're going to keep for a while. And they're excited about it.
Okay. They're motivated that way. All right. Are consumers driven by price or quality in today's environment?
Not as much. Not like we used to be. We do not sell high-end furniture like we used to. I mean, I hate to say that, but the imports have learned to do better and better and better. And so you will find better frames and better fabrics. You'll find better woods, better finishes. And they've got the ability to, hand surface a dining table, do other things. We couldn't compete on price. When I moved into my place I live now, I wanted a highboy. I live in Richmond, Virginia, very traditional, so forth. I wanted a highboy, and I went to a friend's store, and they had one on sale, believe it or not. And this highboy was from Hinkle Harris, and it cost, let's see, it was regularly, I think, $16,000 plus, and they let me have it today only for $10,000.
Okay.
I really looked at it. I was trying to think of a way to buy that and not have my wife kill me. And then I just was on my own. As I walked through the store, I ran into one by Theodore Alexander. And it was a damn nice looking highboy. It wasn't exactly the same finish. It wasn't exactly the same hardware, but it was impressive. $2,700. Now, do I want one of the Hinkle Harris or do I want three of the Theodore Alexander? What a tough decision for anybody to make. I mean, they are making a product that you can be proud of at a price that you can't believe. This is going on in every product you buy, not just furniture.
Okay. How does the small guy survive this? We have a very broad base of membership in the HFA, and we have a number of single store retailers. So how does the small guy survive?
First, differentiate yourself. Do not copy anyone else. Have things in your store that are memorable. Years ago, there was a medium price upholstery manufacturer. I happen to know the founder, who was elderly at the time, and they had honest to God, a fake fur sofa in the showroom in a prominent place. I'm not talking ugly. I'm talking superlative ugly. And I took him aside and I said, give me one reason why that's in here. Do you actually sell it? He says, yes, we do. He says, but that's not the reason we have it. All the upholstery companies are getting fabrics from the same vendors. So you can walk through and see new fabrics here and new fabrics there. But what happens is the customers don't forget our showroom, because they'll say, you know, I really like that sofa. Oh, what was the company with the ugly fake fur sofa? It's a way of remembering us versus all the rest of them. That's what you've got to do. Put things in your store that are ugly, that are distinctive, that there's probably not but 2 people in your city that would want to buy, because it'll make them come back and see what's new. And make sure to reinforce you've got new things coming in that you've bought, you know, every week. You don't want to let them walk out thinking, well, I don't have to go back to this store for another 3 years, which is unfortunately what we teach people a lot. Go, again, I'll talk about High Point, which is my favorite market. Look at High Point, go through Showcase or the Market Square Suites, Inner Hall. You're going to see some stuff in there that's so ugly it's on the fringe of good taste. But there's somebody out there that wants it.
I'm hoping that somebody listening to this will just, maybe we can have an experiment where we just put you in charge of merchandising one store just to see what that would look like. I think that would be, fabulous. Appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to ask you, and kind of in this last couple of questions here, is the importance of digital marketing. You talked about how consumers are shopping right now, and we've heard from everybody from Todd Wanek and Ashley on down about the importance of this. Where do you put that in the overall spectrum for retailers of all sizes when it comes to that digital marketing piece?
I despise it. I really do, because I can't imagine anyone out there who has enough time to answer all the stuff that they get. And I refuse to have anything to do with LinkedIn. Instagram, no thank you. And I feel bad because people send me requests and I don't reply. It's like I'm stuck up or something. No, I just don't have time to go through all 18 or 20 of them now. If I get to my emails, I'm doing really good, to tell you the truth. So the problem is simply time and priority. And when you're young, it's such a high priority, and it's getting ingrained in these young people. So they're going to continue to use these as a favorite way to shop in the future. You need to develop lists. You need a way to communicate with them. Find logical ways to communicate with them. Tell them you just got back from this market or that market, and show them some of the things that are coming in soon that you've never had before, but you're the kind of market we're thinking of when we buy these things. You, the furniture store, have to remember that you are a proxy buying for the people who come in your store. You've got to remember that. Will people that come into our store like this or hate it? That's really the challenge to you. And today there's a lot of new things out there. I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a power beanbag.
But I want to point out, by the way, and you sort of framed it interestingly, but even though you have a disdain personally for digital marketing, I hear you saying that you got to go there because that's where the frontier is right now. So you would agree with the fact that that's got to be a focus for what you're doing as a retailer.
You have to deal with it. You have to do some research into which is the most likely to work for you in your community, going after your customer, and then hire a couple of young people who actually think this stuff is fun, rather than try to get someone over the age of 50 and make them work with it. I'm 72. I hate computers, but I can do email. Mm-hmm. And I've got 2 assistants that work with me. And when I screw up my computer, they come in and they fix it with one punch of a button somehow. And then they kind of giggle at the old man who doesn't know how to run a computer. Well, they also are reminded every once in a while that when I'm as good with a computer as they are, I don't need them anymore.
So it's all about them, keeping them employed. I like that. That's very magnanimous.
We all have to be experts in everything.
I'll tell you, I always enjoy these conversations. I have a very self-serving question, but an important question, very important question. Why does a business, particularly a home furnishings retail business, why do they need an association right now?
just think of yourself as an Indian fighter, and you're out on the plains, and all of a sudden there are Indians coming at you from every direction, and you don't have any friends. That's what's happening to you. The reason all these other companies got in this business, the e-commerce people and others, is because they think they can do things better than we can. And we have to show them they can't. Most of the stuff that's being done through e-commerce is made so that it can be efficiently shipped and efficiently delivered. They don't look at the longevity of the product. They don't look at the kind of qualities and species of lumber and things that were always important in past years. And young people, I think, for the most part, figure if it serves a purpose, then it's probably adequate. But as they grow, as they have a home and have equity in a home, that's when they start investing, and that's when they start showing the home off. And that's when we shine, because we sell things, furniture stores, that last, and we stand behind them. Right now, you've got Casper and Purple and a couple of these guys, going out, and they're advertising. And what I hate is I'm not seeing my old time guys who used to advertise all the time advertising anymore. And I think it's a shame to give up the brand recognition just because you are sold out right now. I don't know why they're not advertising like they used to.
So are you saying that, and again, from an association standpoint, that's the most important thing for us is to really be leading that charge for the viability of this industry, the uniqueness of this brick and mortar industry? Is that why you feel that we're with it?
Whole guy in the middle with the Indian circling me. And actually, I don't mind Indians circling me, but in this context, I'm telling you, if you don't participate in the associations, then you stand alone, and the legal issues, the consumer issues, just in your own state, they're too complex for you to keep up with. Or you're going to be paying a lawyer a lot more money. I apologize.
That's all right.
Kathy, say hello. Oh, about 500 people. I'm still on the call. Say hello. Okay, bye.
Wow. Well, that's what I love about these. Everything happens. We're sequestered in our offices or bedrooms in my case, and who knows what happens. But bottom line is, you basically
on purpose in case something messed up, we could reach each other.
But you basically feel like, again, this is about coming together collectively, which is really why this association was formed in the first place. So
no one in our industry is big enough to be able to put the staff in place to know all the issues they're facing, and that's just what they're facing today, or what they're looking at the future. The associations, I'm way behind them. I have been my whole career because I think they're so important. And one of the things they're good at is helping new generations come in and work with the older generation.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you for that. And I want to just mention, we've gone a little bit over, but this has been a great conversation. There's been a number of takeaways that we've gotten from Jerry today, and I want to review those if I could here for the next few moments, just really quickly, so that as you walk away from this, you will be able to really kind of understand some of the key elements here. So let's do the takeaways right now, if we could. And we're going to put a list up here. 20% of furniture sales come from customers moving to a new home. So new and existing home sales are doing well. Mortgage rates expected to stay level. So a lot of people are going to be needing furniture. Statistically, the U.S. shows more savings by consumers than any time since the 50s. Credit card and household debt's been reduced. Jerry talked about the fact that when you couple that with all of these restaurants and other areas of our lives where we're not spending money, there's money to be spent, and certainly home furnishings is an area. High level of demand for home furnishings industry, he feels, will remain robust through the next year, which is fantastic. Let's see what our other takeaways are here. The cost issues that are pressuring your industry need to be embraced. Now is the time to raise prices. Yes. He says consumers will still buy. I know this is a really touchy area for a lot of people, but I appreciate your bluntness on that, Jerry. Consumers have learned to shop online. They may not always buy, but having an e-com website is critical for your business. It's the first point of contact. When communicating supply chain delays to consumers, be transparent and honest. These are global issues, and the message will be similar across all retailers. I do want to mention, by the way, Jerry, you're aware of this, but next week at this time, we have a webinar coming up with Michael Barron, and we're going to be talking about retailers and their buying power and supply financing, essentially. Would you just talk briefly about why that is such a key area that retailers are going to want to definitely tune into that to hear about that and some of the complexities right now with that issue?
If you could read some of the publications that address consumer banking issues, the Federal Reserve, which has guaranteed us these low rates, has said to the banking community that this is not a license for you to go give away things and end up with credit problems 1 or 2 years down the road. And they're being increasingly restricted. If you look at Bank America and look at their write-offs that they took here at the beginning of the last quarter, which was $40 billion in write-offs in anticipation of a lot of the credit they gave out after these government incentives not holding up. Hey, the government's watching you. The Fed is going to cooperate to make the economy grow, but they're really watching the banks and other lenders to make sure that they're not going too far afield from the standards that got us in so much trouble in 2008 and 2009. So I hope they maintain those standards, because if our incomes continue to grow like they have grown so far this year, which is right at 5%, which is just unheard of. If we're getting those kind of disposable income gains, our consumers are going to get healthier and healthier every day. The debt's already down. I think we're going to be in a period where there are real income gains, largely because there's not much inflation. I remember when you have your incomes go up 5%, which was wonderful, but if inflation went up 8%, you didn't do so good.
In talking about that's great points on consumer buying power. What are your thoughts, though, as far as some of the concerns related to the financing of POs and things of that sort, and a lot of that tightening up, and maybe retailers not really understanding that their buying power is at risk on that end of the spectrum? Any thoughts on that?
Just be careful. Do not get overextended. This is not a good time to be overextended. And it's not a good time to go to the bank for a lot of help, because that's not what they're really in the business for. So just, again, don't overextend yourself.
All right, I appreciate that. And I want to make mention the fact that we've got 2 more slides here that I want to just review before we end our time today. But it's important to point out that we've talked about this community coming together, you not being alone, the power of membership. We really always will invite you, if you're not a member, to join. We have 1,400 retailers across the country, and we have the resources to help you survive in this pandemic and sustain going forward. And we're here fighting for you on a daily basis. So that's very, very important. And want to just also mention here one final slide. I want to thank you for joining us, but I want to mention that all of our webinars, we've had a ton this year. All of them are on demand. If you've missed anything, you want to hear them again, myhfa.org/webinar, and you will be able to tap in. And again, next week we have Michael Barron here talking about supplier financing, and that's going to be on the 17th. Jerry Epperson.
Really good. Don't miss it.
Well, thank you for that. I hope you will listen too, Jerry. But Jerry, we thank you for joining us. Love to have your insights. I love your humor throughout, because this is a great business, and we got to always sort of stop ourselves and really realize that we have so many great things going on, even with all the noise around us. And it's nice to have that as a reminder. But collectively, from the Home Furnishings Association, we wish you and your family terrific holiday season and a new, prosperous new year for everybody. And we thank all of you for joining us. We are here for you and look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Mark Schumacher for all of us here at the Home Furnishings Association. We'll see you next time.
Please stay safe.